Hey friends, welcome to the Angie Ambrosetti Show, Let Her Out to Play. I'm Angie, your host, a teenage mom turned multi-six-figure earner, married to the same man for nearly 40 years. I'm a homeschooling mom of 7 and totally unqualified, at least on paper, but wildly called by God. Remember, He doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Here, we are going to talk about it all. Healing from the hard stuff, building a business with heart, raising a big family, walking in faith, and finally breaking free from the lies that said we weren't enough. So if you're ready to stop playing small, shake off the doubt and the shame, and step fully into who you were created to be, girl, you are in the right place. Let's go. Welcome back to the Angie Ambrosetti Show. Guys, I am really excited for you to meet my sweet friend, Laura Ard, today. Guys, just let me say ahead of time, be prepared that the tears might fall. Every time I'm with her, I get goosebumps because we share a lot of things in common. We share our love for Jesus, for good health. We're podcasters together, and I just always get this great bubbly feeling when I'm with her. Her smile is contagious, and I know that you guys are going to absolutely love her. So my friend Laura Ard and I met several years ago, and we were just talking, and we're like, I'm not sure when we met or exactly
Mm,
how we met. We are in the same network marketing business together. And so I'm sure that's how we met somewhere along the way.
yeah.
We only live about 45 minutes apart. And so we have taken full advantage of that the last few years and getting together, traveling together, doing amazing things. But she is the podcast host of Voice Unbound. She is also a podcast editor. She is a Christian life coach, and she is an overall amazing woman. So, my friend Laura, welcome to the call today.
Oh my gosh, how do you even come in after all that? It's like, that's enough. When you hear people talk about yourself, you kind of like cringe, like wanting to accept that, right? All
Yeah.
these things, but I step into it with joy and honor. It's so good to be here. I love that I get to be a part of your podcast in a different way, and then I get to go
Yeah.
edit it.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, so thank you for having me today.
You're so welcome. Well, thank you for being willing. I know that you're super busy with all these things going on, but I just felt like coming off of some of the series that we have or that I have recently done, and then just this last episode that I had on infidelity and just talking so much about marriage and
Mm.
just how the Lord weaves everything together so beautifully. I thought it would be a great idea if you came on and you shared several things, but I really would love for you to open up with talking about your love story. I love
Mm.
hearing it over and over. I never get tired of it because we've talked through it several times,
Yeah.
but I know that our listeners are going to be so blessed and encouraged by it. So, would you just open up by sharing that with us today?
Oh gosh, yes. You can't ever talk enough about this, but I would kind of like to step back because I want women to see there is hope. Because I was a 30-year-old getting divorced from a narcissist that was a very rough marriage. And I stayed 15 years in that thinking because as a Christian woman, I'm to stay married, I'm to make it work. And I really found one day God saying, no, this isn't a marriage, and you do need to leave this marriage. And so I did, and for 2 years, I was finding myself again. Like, I
Mhm.
had totally lost who I was and all that, and drawing closer to God, because in that time frame, I was not so one-on-one with Him, living
Mhm.
the life as a Christian, but there's different than being a Christian and loving
Mhm.
Jesus fully. So, 2 years into that by myself, raising my daughter, and I started getting lonely and thinking, "Is there love out there again?" In 30s with a child, 2 children,
Mhm.
and, I placed an ad in the paper, and I don't know what made me do this, but it was online, and I put it in the want ads. I didn't even put it in, like, the love area. I put it in the want ads, and I spoke specifically in what I was looking for and who I was. And I had a couple of guys answer, but this one guy, he answered, and he wanted to meet me on Sunday, January the 5th. We'll never forget that day, and it was at my dad's church. And he drove up, and as soon as he stepped out of that car, I was like, "Oh my gosh." what in the world is this? And we went in church, and Angie, just standing in church with him, I felt such a presence. And then the singing together, singing the hymns. And I'm like, oh my God, this is just what I've longed for.
Yeah.
And I remember looking up in the choir, and there's one of my lady friends. She was older, and she was kind of a mentor. And she looked at me and she said, "He's the one." And I kind of just grinned at her, I didn't know. And we got out of church and decided to take off to the mountains for the day. And my mother was in panic mode. She's leaving with a stranger, and she don't even know this guy. And I was like, Mom, we'll be fine, because they lived next to the church. And we took off and had the most wonderful day together, just sharing all our hopes and our dreams and things that we wanted to do in life. And I really didn't know for sure what I wanted to do in life, because I've been like I had, not knowing that freedom. Um, and we didn't get back till almost 11 o'clock that night. Now, back in the day, I'm going to age myself here, we had pagers. Do you remember those?
I do.
And we had pagers, and my mom kept paging me like, "Where are you? Where are you?"
Yeah.
I finally said, "I need a caller." But we had gone to the mountains, we stopped and got Starbucks, we went to the movies, and by the time we got back, I remembered, "Oh, my daughter's coming back tomorrow from her dad's. I need to go get her radio system that I was planning on getting her, last minute girl here." And he said, "Well, you're not going out this late. I'll follow you there. You get it, and then, we can leave." And so he did. He followed me there, helped me pick out the system for her. And he said, "I'm not going to bother you tomorrow because I know she's coming in and all the things." I said, "Great." And I thought, will I hear from him again? And
Yeah.
so I picked up my daughter, and the first thing I told her, which was not a real nice thing, "You had an animal die. One of her little pets died. And I met the man I'm going to marry." And she's like, "What?" she's, I'm like, "Yeah, I
If
did."
he calls me back.
Yeah, yeah, if he calls. Well, sure enough, the next morning he called, and there was a Bible study on Tuesday night. He's like, "You wanna go?" And I'm like, "Of course."
Yeah.
And I knew. And so by 2 weeks of dating, he asked me to marry him. And I was like,
Mm.
"Yes, why wait?" I mean, we knew. He was very nervous because he had a job that he traveled all the time, his company, his business,
Mhm.
doing chainsaw safety training all over the country. And he was like, "I'm gonna be gone a lot. Can you handle this?" And I'm like, "You're living God's purpose. I'm so proud of you. Why wouldn't I wanna handle this?"
Yeah.
Little did I know how hard that was gonna be when he pulled out of that driveway every week. It was hard. I
Yeah.
missed him. I didn't like it, but I supported him.
Mhm.
And then in my mind, I started thinking, how can we make this work? How can I travel with him? And we got married in March 28th on Good Friday,
Yeah.
his doing, because then that gave us 2 dates to celebrate our anniversary. Good Friday moves around. So
Yeah.
every time Good Friday come up, it'd be our anniversary. The 28th of March was our anniversary. So pretty cool there. But I did figure out how to get us together. And I said, "How about we travel in an RV going from place to place like a band?" And he's like, "Well, let's put pen to paper. Let's see how that adds up for our people." And it did. It added up beautifully. So we had a guy, Winnebago actually sponsored us with an RV. We traveled all over the country in it. Well, it lasted a year because we were out on the road a lot, and that RV couldn't handle us, all that
Yeah.
travel. He says, "You guys need a bus." So we got us a bus out of Florida, and we traveled in that for many years, put lots of miles on that. And then the Lord was calling me to stay home and raise 2 granddaughters. And that was hard.
Yeah.
But our love, knowing that was where God had put us to raise them in the home that He put us in, because this time we had moved to Rome, Georgia, a 4-bedroom house. And everybody's like, "Why are you getting such a large house? You guys are never home." And I thought, we like it. It's peaceful. It's beautiful. It's ours.
Yeah.
You come visit, you stay with us.
Mhm.
And no, God had plans for us to bring in the 2 girls and live with us. So they had their own room. Everything worked. I was 8 years off the road.
Mm.
And then you see real quickly how love holds you together, because him gone all week, me living a life now with the girls, you almost start living separate lives unbeknownst. I mean, you're not something
Yeah.
you plan, not something you're going to do, but it happens. And I started feeling that because he'd come home on the weekends and we were all about him and doing things. I wouldn't really tell him a whole lot about the week because raising teenagers, it's not
Yeah.
easy. And I
Yeah.
didn't want to tell him all that because then he was like, you know, but we made it through that. We grew, we learned, and then the girls decided one went back to mom, went in the army, left, graduated, all the things. And I said, I'm back out on the road with you. That's where I belong. And so we took the little RV that he had downsized to and got the large RV
Mm.
so that I could go back on the road with him. We have built such an amazing community out across the US, amazing community of people that we got to go and train with. And he's like, they've missed you anyway. That's all they ask about is you. Where's Laura? Why isn't Laura here? And so when I came back out on the road, it was like home again, being out
Yeah.
there. In that time frame, though, I want to step back a little bit. I get ahead of myself. In 2008, Tim was diagnosed with colon cancer. A shock. We were just like flabbergasted. Our
Mm.
world was rocked. And I'm like, okay, we got this. But then, of course, you think all the terrible things. Life's
Yeah.
over. We're not going to do this. But Tim would do chemo one week and we'd be back on the road the next. Incredible to see this man do that in his Depends, no less. He'd say, I have extra protection on when he'd stand up in class, talking about personal protection for chainsaws. He said, well, I have a little extra because this is where he's at in his journey. Got through it. The doctor said, evidently him staying that so going and moving and not living in the disease of
Yeah.
cancer, that's
Mhm.
what pushed him through.
Yeah.
We did all the checkups for months on end after, nervous wreck every time you go for the PET scan or the CAT scan or blood work, is it going to come back clean? And it did. And then
Mm.
we went right back into living life again, working full time on the road. Go, go, go. In 2020, world rocked, right? For all of us.
Yeah.
We were home a lot. We did get to go to Alabama and some other places, a little bit of training, not a whole lot, but it was really fun to me. I enjoyed being home. It was kind of like a downtime for him and I.
Yeah.
We did more things. We took day trips. We did all kinds of cool stuff, just enjoying life, not worrying about work. Although we were,
Mhm.
like we got to get back here, we got to get back. And we did 2021, 22. We were rocking and rolling. And then about 23, I started noticing, how your man's not doing so well.
Mhm.
But yet he was like, keep pushing, keep pushing. And he had a
I'm
place come.
fine. I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. And he had a place come up on his face. And I kept saying, go get that taken care of. And it was starting to eat away his face. And he's like, no, they'll cut half my face off. I ain't got time for that. He just kept patching it up, dealing with it. And then he had to come one on his arm. Well, we rocked on, of course, and his stubbornness. And then we were at convention in Nashville,
Mhm.
and we were walking the town. Well, he had to keep sitting down. And I was like, I'm usually the one that has to sit down. I can't keep up with your long legs. What's up?
Yeah.
I'm just out of breath. I need to sit down. And then he was wanting to rest a lot in between sessions. And that was not Tim.
Mhm.
That was June, right? Our convention. August, we had taken off for 3 weeks on the road. And we were in Bath, New York, and he was, like, struggling getting from point A to point B. And I started as his wife thinking, "I'm gonna have to make an executive decision here." And so we
Yeah.
started into Massachusetts the following week. And I asked the coordinator, I said, "While you're out in the woods with him, will you check on him and just kinda tell me how things are going?" She said, "They're not good. He's having to get the Jeep brought to him out there instead of walking to the Jeep." I said, "Well, we're going home. I've got the doctor. He's going to see him Saturday morning. We're going to have to go home." And so he didn't like it, but I
Yeah.
said, "We're not staying. We have to get you home." And so we stopped. I think we started back home on Thursday night in August, and I'm driving because I had to learn how to drive the RV, be prepared.
Yeah.
And got to a good point in Pennsylvania where we always stopped in the RV. There was a restaurant we could pull up in there and have dinner and stay the night. They let you stay the night. And so we got up next morning, our slides would not go in. And I was like, what is going on? We have to get on the road. We've got to get him home to the doctor. Lord, please, we got to get this thing closed.
Yeah.
And evidently, the way we parked, it had shifted just enough where it wouldn't come in. And so I said, okay, let's just sit here a minute. I prayed over it. I said, you got the video. You know how to do this. Let's just walk through it again slow. And it worked. It came in. But I realized when we got on the highway, it was dead stop and he was driving. We sat there for 2 hours on the highway. There was a massive wreck. So that was protection.
Yeah.
Well, by that time, he was tired. He needed me to drive. So I took over, drove till about 6 that evening, and I said, "I need about an hour break." We got gas. And I said, "Just give me a break to get up, from it and all." And, he said, "Sure." And he felt good. I felt confident in his ability to drive because 'cause you're sitting and it was a lot of traffic. I said, "The
Yeah.
traffic's really weird today." It was just a eerie weird. And he got to driving, and I'm sitting back there chatting because I didn't sit up front in the RV because I'm a backseat driver.
Yeah.
And I would be telling him how
Yeah.
to drive everywhere. So I stayed in the back and I was on the phone just to Gavin. And all of a sudden I hear, "We're wrecking, we're wrecking." And I'm like, "What?" And I'm looking and I see him trying to swerve to miss this truck in front of him that has slammed their brakes on. And the
Mhm.
truck went with him. So we clipped the bottom railing of the guy's truck. That's it. Just bent the bottom railing, but tore the whole front of our RV up on the driver's side. So this is like 9 o'clock at night and or 8, somewhere around there. And so all that happened. We get over to the tow place. And I said, "Can we just stay the night here in the RV and we'll get up real early and leave?" He said, "No, nobody can stay on the property." Great. Okay. We pack everything that we can personally of ours in a Jeep Gladiator with 5 dogs. We had 5 dogs, and we had to get everybody in that, and I had all this food. We prepared all our food on the road, and so I asked the tow truck guy owner, I said, "You want some food? It's all fresh cooked meat, all the things." He's like, "Yeah." So I gave all that to him because it wasn't gonna be plugged in. My refrigerator was gonna be off,
Yeah. Mm.
and we didn't know how long this is in Virginia. Didn't know how long that thing's gonna be sitting there.
Yeah.
So I was like he said, "Well, there's a hotel up the road." I said, "No, we're going home. I'm driving all night. We got 6 hours to go. I'm getting us home." And so I did. I took off and he drove for about an hour in between the middle of the night, got us home, got him to the doctor, and they did the EKG. And he's like, "You got to get him straight to the hospital." And so we get him in there, and his heart is like massive enzymes, like heart attack, all the things. And we're like, "Heart?" That was the furthest thing from my brain. I was thinking COVID lung, something stupid because he had had
Yeah.
COVID
Yeah.
twice. And then they're like, "But you're bleeding from somewhere."
Mm.
And we're like, "Well, he's not been that and that." So, and so they did a scan and they found another large tumor in his colon. Well, now we got the heart and colon. And they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we've got to address the colon, but now we're afraid with his heart that low, it's only operating at 35% his heart."
Mm.
So they said, "Let's do a colonoscopy." They had the heart doctor there in case anything went wonky on that. They couldn't get in with the colonoscopy. The tumor was too big, too much happening. He didn't want to disrupt. So surgery was the very next day with so many risks, but they felt they needed to do that. And so they went in and had an amazing doctor. They were able to remove the tumor, piece him back together. He said it's already gone through the small intestines, all the things. And he said, we've got him just barely back together in there. But he came through that surgery so well, much better than he did the first time.
Mhm.
And so I felt really kind of at peace, like, okay, they got it. They got it this time.
Yeah.
Now, what about the heart? And he said, "Well, we're not going to do anything with the heart because they needed to do open heart surgery. And they didn't want to do that unless the cancer was taken care of." Well, Tim was pretty adamant. He had already been through chemo once. He wasn't going through it again.
Yeah.
He just could not. It had taken a lot of things away from us. And when I say that, people are kind of shocked, but Tim and I had not been intimate in the way that you would love to be intimate in probably 14 years. And yet, and that's something I stress girls. Your love is not based on sex. you
Yeah.
know, don't let that be the one reason you marry,
Mhm.
because if that had been that reason, we wouldn't be together. I mean, I had so much love between us that I didn't have to have that.
Mhm.
Yeah, we missed it like crazy, but that was not a part of us that we had to have to sustain our marriage.
Yeah.
So that was, gone. So he didn't want anything else taken from him through chemo. And he knew if he even did the chemo, his heart would not withstand it. There's no
Yeah.
way. So he said, "Laura, I don't want it, but I will get my face taken care of, my arm," which they did surgery on the arm. He did radiation to the face,
Mhm.
which was very rough. Radiation's not easy, guys. That's
Mm-mm.
daily for like, he did 30 something treatments. And He felt awful. He had teeth fall out from that. It was
Wow.
it was rough.
Mhm.
But, that was 2024, 23, 24, and he had a PET scan, showed clear before he started the treatments of radiation. Then at the end of the treatments, they wanted to do another PET scan, and when they did, it showed 2 more tumors back in his stomach and his abdomen, all in there, already in the intestinal wall, and the doctor said, "We cannot open him back up, but we do advise, again, we're wanting you to do chemo." And Tim's like, "I'm not gonna do it." And
Yeah.
I said, "I'm fine." He said, "I don't wanna make you angry." And I said, "It don't make me angry. I mean, it's sad either way."
Yeah.
You don't know what's gonna work, and most of the time, your gut feeling tells you, and I have to
Mhm.
trust you in that, and I
Yeah.
did. I hated it either way for him. And so 2024, we lived life. We did it as best we could, um, doing the little things together, what he could handle, and I noticed each time progressing that he was getting worse.
Yeah. Okay, friend.
That was the hardest part, watching him.
Mm.
People said, "Well, you had time." I said, "Yes, I'm thankful for the time that I had." But it's also hard seeing him go away. And he would wait. Like December, he finally decided to have a bed in there. He didn't want to inconvenience me in any way. And I said, "I married you to take care of you, sick and health, either way." And I said, "You need to be comfortable." So we got the bed because we'd been asking him for months to get the bed. He was staying on the couch. He couldn't lay down flat at all. And I fixed it in there. We were cramped in there. I didn't care. In the living room. That was his room. And so we fixed the bed. And then I say, he had not eaten, y'all, since November. He might have had a bite of his birthday stuff when the kids came to do his birthday in December. But the nurses couldn't believe how he was hanging on, not even eating, and he was taking sips. I started doing the shakes with him,
Mhm.
and he'd get them down for a little bit, and then next time he could just take a sip of it. And so that was a process of just, taking care of him day in and day out. I didn't even know what day it was, what time it was, because I was just
Yeah.
constant. Had the
Mhm.
camera on in my bedroom so that I could watch him if I woke up or I could hear him. One night I didn't hear him. I guess I was so tired. And he was panicked. And I went in there and I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "I've been calling you. I've been trying to get you." I was like, "Oh God." And it was something real simple, but it was still a panic to him. And
Yeah.
so, "Do you want me to sleep in here? I'll stay in here on the couch." But he didn't. He wanted me to go to my bed, so I did. Every night I'd go in there. And then I guess in January things were happening, and then we get into February and I'm like, we're getting closer. And the week of his passing, I told the nurses, I said, "It's not gonna be long because I can just tell his color was already out of his feet. His hands were starting to lose color." And I started telling people that want to come see him because this is gonna be it. And on a Thursday night, my son was a truck driver, and he was back and forth from Texas to Atlanta. And he'd got in at 5 o'clock in Atlanta. And he called me and he said, "Mom, I'm never back this early, but I think I need to come home." And I was like, "No, I think we'll make it through Saturday, probably, the weekend. And that's when I'm going to need you."
Mhm.
And I hung up the phone and I looked at Tim and I said, he was barely talking. And I said, "Tony's in town. Should he come home? And if you think so, start waving." He started waving. I was like, "Oh God, okay." So I called Tony back. I said, "Come home. He needs you here and he wants you with me." So he got there about 10 o'clock that night. And Tim started getting really agitated because
Mhm.
he would not take medicine. It was very little we had a patch on him. I tried to give him medicine for, like, getting sick at his stomach and stuff, but it was very little. He'd take it one time, then don't give it to him again.
Yeah.
And so the nurses had made me a compound that I could rub on his wrist and him not really know that I was doing it. And I only did it that night because I was watching him get so agitated with everything.
Mhm.
I rubbed it on his wrist just to give him some calmness, but I had prayed that his brain would stay present. And
Yeah.
then that week I started praying, "Okay, I don't really want him to be that present." but he was. And he kept sliding down on the bed, and he was like, "Sit me up." And Tony and I got up under his arms and set him up, and his head went back, and he was fixated in heaven. I knew that was it. And that was his last words to me, "Sit me up." And I laugh. Yeah, bossy, tell me what to do.
Yeah.
But he was gone at like 3 something in the morning. And so thankful to have been on that journey with him. As hard as it was also very beautiful to know that he was at peace and he was home.
Yeah.
I was so blessed with his love. He gave me the most beautiful 28 years. Our anniversary was March 28th, so I always say 28 years because we were already in the year of our
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah.
So 28 years, a beautiful life of getting to do things I would have never experienced in my life,
Mhm.
meeting so many incredible people, encouraging me to start a crazy podcast. I'm like, "Why do you want me to do something like that?" He said, "'Cause you love to talk."
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, believing in me before I believed in myself.
Isn't that isn't that the beauty of marriage
Mhm.
and having a spouse when the Lord calls you to that? Because they do believe more
Mhm.
so. I know my husband does. He believes so much more in me than I believe in myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just like
And you,
Tim.
the same for him, I'm
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
because you see things in him that he doesn't always see. And that was how we built on each other. I mean, people are like, "How do you travel together all the time and be with him?" And I'm like, we genuinely enjoy it. I
Yeah.
mean, we have so much fun. And they're like, "Well, you come home, you still go on dates?" I'm like, "Yeah, we
Mhm.
do, because that's different. We were making, intentional time.
Yeah.
Even though we were always together, we made intentional time. Even on the road, we'd go to a favorite restaurant in some town we'd remember, "Oh
Mhm.
gosh, we gotta go eat there."
Yeah.
And, yeah, the kids would laugh at us all the time. "Don't you get sick of being around each other all the time?" Like, "No, we don't."
Well, and the truth is when you're working together, like my husband and I work together a lot
You're
because of the
focused.
different businesses. Yeah.
Mhm,
We are focused on the business that we're doing at the
mhm,
time.
mhm,
You wear different hats, different times of the day.
mhm.
And so we are very intentional about having date night and we put the phone away. Like
Mhm.
we make sure, except sometimes I'll be like, well, just let me make a video of us or
Yeah,
just let me
no,
take a
I'm the
picture.
picture taker.
Mhm. But I'm not gonna message people or I'm not
Yeah,
gonna be on
I'll
social
save it for
media.
later. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
That sort of thing.
yeah,
Well, I think that you are so brave, my friend, to come on and share that beautiful story of the beginning and then your end of life here on this earth.
yeah.
Believers know it's not the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I'll see him again, and just the joy of celebrating him. I chose this time. I've said the first of this, the first that tomorrow's my last first of,
Mhm.
not having him here. And I said, I'm not going to count those anymore
Yeah.
because I want to remember all my firsts that I had with him. We had so many firsts. The first kiss, of course, all
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah.
And so these last 21 days of February, the first 21 days, I've chosen to celebrate him each day in memories of him till the
Mm.
21st of his passing, because he'll be his 1 year. And it's brought so much fun just going back and reminiscing of those things that were taking place and how I'm remembering him. And I hope it's brought joy to those other widows. I've had two friends just in the last 2 weeks lose their husband.
Mm.
And I'm like, one to suicide. And I'm like, gosh, I can't even, I'm like, I'm already a year ahead of them. And I'm going right back feeling that moment of what they're feeling. But it's different for everybody, the
Yeah.
emotion they go through, and especially the circumstance of how their spouse died. It's a different grief for everybody, but I still can relate and pray, for them.
Yeah. Well, and I actually was just talking about this on my other podcast, but I know you're going to remember this because we were recently at an event together at a conference in San Diego, and we heard a speaker say, your story is about you. but
Mhm.
it's not for
Not
you.
for me.
And Laura, this story that you're sharing, it is about you, but it's not for you. It's for
Right?
those women who are following along. It's for those women who are just losing their spouses. It's for
Mm,
the women who somewhere down the road will unfortunately lose their spouse and they're going to need that support and that encouragement. And
mhm.
isn't that why we do the things that we do with our podcast?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's again, my whole passion because my podcast being Voice Unbound. I
Mhm.
want women to unbound their voices. I want them to use them because in this age that we're in, and we're not old, Angie, we're aged, I
Yes,
say. We're
yes.
we're we're full of wisdom, and a lot of times we don't see that,
Mm,
we don't see that in ourselves that, "Oh, our story's not anything, it's out there, everybody's gone through that." Not your story. They haven't gone through what you've gone through in the way that you did, and
yeah.
it may lead someone into like, "Oh, I do have hope."
Mhm.
That's why I want women to see in your 30s and you lose a spouse or you get out of a terrible divorce, um, don't give up.
Mhm.
Because I got to experience what true marriage was, and I
Yeah.
never thought I would,
Mhm.
and my children gained an amazing stepfather. And
Yeah.
one thing beautiful, my daughter, who was astray for all those years, was able to talk to Tim and ask forgiveness and be back in his life a short period of time. But
Mhm.
that was beautiful. That was another God given little moment, of
Yeah.
that. And now she's back in my life and living here with me, and I thank God every day for that because
Mhm.
I wanted that daughter relationship and now I have it.
Yeah.
But in his timing, he
Yes.
knew I was going to be on my own and alone, a widow,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know? I
His
couldn't say
timing is
widow for
always
a long
perfect.
t yeah, his timing is always perfect.
Yeah.
But I had a very hard time even saying the word widow. I'm like, "Mm-mm. I don't wanna claim that.
You didn't
No
want the
way.
title.
No,
Mm.
no." I'm leaning into it. It is what I am, but I'm also finding that I am just a daughter of a child of God. I am a woman with, life to live yet. He
Yeah.
chose to keep me here for a
Yeah.
reason. And so while
Mhm.
I'm here, I am to lean into that.
Yeah. So just talking about the fact that you didn't want to, like, claim that title, was there a moment when you realized, "Okay, I have to learn how to stand on my own now
Mhm. And
and
that's been
embrace what I've been given?"
yeah, and that's not been but probably in the last few months
Mhm.
because just again, little things and making decisions on my own. Um, putting this monitor that I now have up and together because he was my go-to to okay, come hook all these wires and do
Yeah.
all the things. And I'm like, oh God, I gotta do this. I gotta figure this
Mhm.
out. Afraid to touch this wire because I may not be able to get it back the same way.
Yeah.
And so I started saying, okay, Lord, this is my new identity in you, of course.
Mhm.
So you're going to give me the tools in order to live out this new identity.
Yeah.
And, I'm not hiding behind anybody. I'm not of somebody. I am of me and you. So teach me how to live
Mhm.
that now.
Yeah.
And is it easy? No. Every day's a new day though. And I get
Yeah.
to embrace that. And how am I going to do it today? Show me how to show up today.
Mhm. Well, knowing ahead of time that the road is not gonna be easy every day,
Mm-mm.
but facing it head on, and I have watched you, do just that. Like, I know that he was your go-to guy for,
Mhm.
whenever, like, even now, I'll message you, "Oh, Laura, how do I get my headphones to work right?" Or, "What's happening with my Zoom account?" Blah, blah, blah. And he was your go-to guy for that, and
Mhm.
now you're taking the bull by the horns and you're
Mhm.
learning that, and so, what does strength mean to you today versus a year or 2, even a couple years ago when he was more so in it with you and he was, taking care of the things, and now, like, you've stepped into that role and you're doing that. So how do you feel strength-wise now versus then?
I feel stronger every day.
Mhm.
Um, I feel stronger with every little task that I accomplish. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that wasn't that hard. Why did I have to ask him in the first place
Mhm.
anyway?
Yeah.
I think it was just something we get in a habit. And it
Mhm.
feels good to like, oh, I've pulled him in and my husband did this for me and my husband did this for me. But now I say, I did it. I
Yeah.
actually did that. And he's
Mhm.
what throwing me into a podcast and stepping into it like I did, he was editing my podcast. And when he got sick, not in 2024, I was like, uh-oh, I need to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
And so he comes in, shows me one time, and I'm like, "Wait, that was fast." But
Slow
he's
it
not.
down, slow it down.
He's one like, "You're gonna get in there and you're gonna figure this out because if I stand here and tell you every minute, you're not gonna rely on yourself to figure it out." And that was truth because the first time I went to go do a podcast and edit it, something went wonky.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Tim?" And he's like, "Figure it out." I was like, "Shoot, you're making me mad. I don't want to figure it out." But I did, and it was a simple fix. I
Yeah.
overcomplicated it. I was made a joke this week. I had to replace the toilet seat. Angie, that's a simple thing.
Yeah.
But I was getting so frustrated with it, I had to walk away from it.
Yeah.
And I got so mad that he wasn't here to fix my toilet seat.
Yeah. I mean, I say, yeah, I've never done it for crying out loud, but
Yeah, I
my
mean, yeah, right?
husband,
See, you
I
haven't
know.
had to worry about it.
I know. I
And I
know
get
there are
in
2
there.
screws on the back and it is an easy
It's
change,
more
but
than just the two little freaking screws.
it's 2 screws. That's what I'm gonna
Yeah.
keep telling
Yeah,
myself.
yeah, 2 screws. So, my son, I'm like, "Son, FaceTime me. I gotta put this toilet seat on, and I want it done now, and I'm
Yeah.
not gonna let this overtake me." And so, like, "Mom, you're not putting the screwdriver on the top and then twisting." I was like, "Well, doggone it," and then it went on like a breeze,
Yeah.
But it's just simple things, like, I never had to worry about my car being warmed up.
Mhm.
We had a Tesla, never had to worry about it being charged, it was always charged. Silly things like that, and you
Yeah.
have to start thinking, "Okay, I gotta think of these things."
Yeah.
Storm coming, how do you run a generator? He put it
Mhm.
out there, but he wouldn't teach me how to run it. He's like, "You're gonna figure that out when the time
Yeah.
has come."
Mm.
And I'm like, "You don't have it written down on a note for me somewhere?" Because he would do that. He'd have things written out or, so I
Yeah.
have it. Nope.
Mm.
But,
Y
I think it's taught me that, my strength comes from the Lord, most of all, um, through him, and that I can trust myself.
Yeah.
I always never, I always doubted myself. And that's
Mhm.
from years of being told that I was unworthy.
Yeah.
And it took a lot to bring that back, that I
And,
am.
even sometimes when we're not necessarily we don't hear it verbally that you're unworthy, but so many women that I talk to, myself included,
Mhm.
I never had anyone say to me, "You're not good, you're not educated, you're not this, you're not that." But it's the way that I felt by the things that were said or the
Mhm.
things that weren't said,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? Which, can really downplay on someone. Well, I'm
Mhm.
I'm so excited that he made you get your hands dirty and
Yeah.
learn those things, right?
Yeah. 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 I've done a lot of things this year that I'm pretty doggone proud of myself and carrying it out, and making decisions that are like scary, but
Yeah.
just making them and knowing my gut what I really think I should do and do it,
Mhm, mhm.
And I hear him. Things come across, and I know that's him saying,
Yeah,
"Thumbs up, chick, you
yeah.
got it."
You
You
got this,
know?
girl.
Mhm.
Well, tell us this, what has building or sustaining your business in the middle, basically, building it more
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
since his passing, in the middle of this grief taught you about resilience?
When he got sick and I knew we were gonna be off the road, I started praying, "Lord, I have varied talents. Please start bringing those out because I
Yeah.
don't wanna go back out into the corporate world and
Mhm.
work. I wanna work from home. I wanna be with him." And so that's what he did, and I started doing graphic designs for a realtor. I start all these little things that I had no clue that I could do, but yet it was
Yeah.
bringing money in. And then, of course, the podcast editing and coaching. I have a 4-week program that I coach women in their 40s and up how to start a podcast. And that took off. And I'm like, whoa, okay, this is fun.
Wow,
I
I love
love
that.
seeing them, light up and be excited about their podcasts and doing one. And then the editing of their podcast, continue that on. And
Yeah.
so God has continued to bring the income in where I could stay. And it gave me some peace. But let me tell you, there's some days I would sit here and just sit here
Mhm.
because you are in the midst of grief and you are trying to figure it out. And you're like, I don't know, I'm blocked. I can't do this. So, I'm stuck and all those kind of weird feelings. And I'm thinking, wait, God gave me this gift to stay home. I
Yeah.
better get my butt busy and do the
Mhm.
work so that I
Yeah.
can continue to stay home.
Yeah.
And that's been my prayer continue. I don't want to go back out into the world. I love my time freedom. I
Mhm.
love my marketing business. I love my coaching business, both of those, my podcast itself. I did take a break of that, which girls, you can when things are happening in
Yeah.
your life. Don't feel like
Yeah.
you can't and come back with grace and in your own timing. So I have. And if I don't do one week, it's okay,
Yeah.
you know?
I know,
Um,
I went through that when
yes,
the first week that I didn't do a podcast, I think it was in
you're
December,
freaking out.
and I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my gosh, that
Yeah.
perfectionism's coming back towards
Yeah.
me," but I was fine. I didn't
Yeah.
die. But the interesting thing is I remember thinking, "Who's even gonna notice?"
Yeah.
Because here we are, like, downplaying
So,
ourselves
yeah.
once again,
And it,
and I had a couple people reach out and say, "Hey, where's your podcast?" It's like,
yeah.
"Oh, took a break."
Yeah. And, we have to remember again, it's not about us.
Right.
And that's where we get kind of stuck too. We're like, oh, we got the perfectionism. And I always tell you guys when I start coaching you, I'm not a perfectionism.
Yeah.
So you're going to strike out with that on me, but I will do my best with you. But I'm going to
Mhm.
be honest and I'm going to be truthful with you of how I feel on it. And you can take it and do,
Yeah.
you know.
I love that. In light of you being a podcast editor, and I'm
Hmm.
so thankful for that.
Yes,
I
I love
absolutely
it.
love it. When you hear other women share their stories through that podcast editing, because you're having to listen to everything that gets
Everyone.
said,
Yeah.
the good, the bad, the ugly.
Hmm.
Has walking through loss this past year changed the way that you listen to other people's
Mm.
podcast?
It definitely brings you more in tune with what people are saying. I
Hmm.
have caught myself even in and I drop eavesdrop, I guess is the word, when you're walking somewhere and you hear something and you're like, I wonder where that was going and
Yeah.
why they're saying that.
Hmm.
And so I've listened deeper. I know I do.
Yeah.
I've always been in tune of trying to. I felt like a pretty good character read or an in depth because I can feel it really quick on somebody.
Hmm.
But I feel like I'm feeling it a lot deeper now, and maybe looking at it a different way of
Yeah.
how is God seeing that, and how can I serve them
Mhm.
in this?
Yeah, I love that. Exactly. How can I serve or support you?
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
know, like, that's my desire. I know that's your desire, and
Mhm.
it's such an outpouring of the love of Christ. Is how can we support others? And so, kind of flip flopping back to the fact that you're editing other people's podcasts, but back to your own podcast.
Mm.
Do you feel like this grief has deepened your own voice
Mhm.
as a podcast host? Like, is it I know emotionally, I don't know. I assume emotionally it's there, but
Mm.
do you feel like your voice has really deepened on what you're saying now on your own podcast?
At first, I think it was very quickly, and this just shows you how things can silence your voice
Mhm.
because you start thinking, I don't really need to share that. I don't probably need to talk about that.
Mhm.
And for a long time, like bringing up sex, you don't talk about that because we are
Mhm.
like we were happy in that area.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the grief, I felt like I could go deeper with my voice and being very authentic of how I was feeling in the moment or that week, or what I was experiencing. Because again, everybody experiences it differently.
Yeah.
And then there could be that one that it connects to and like, oh, yes, that is what I was feeling. And I'm glad to
Mhm.
see somebody else, how they went through it and how they leaned into God and my faith. I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah.
You know, my time with Jesus has deepened.
Mhm.
Shamefully, I didn't do it as strict as I was and wanted over the years. And I've made intentional time in the morning because that's my time I like. And I'm a early
Mhm.
riser. I'm up at 4 and 4:30.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to rush. It's his
Mhm.
time and we can spend it however in all the word and all the scripture and the writing scripture and then I just think, okay, now I'm filled so that I
Yeah.
can serve others better in a capacity throughout my day.
Well, I would venture to say this is my outlook on it, is that there have been times in my life when I'm up and down in
Mhm.
my quiet time, whether I'm spending, 5 minutes or I'm spending, an hour, whatever that might look like. I always know that there's a time coming when the Lord is going to open my heart and my mind to desire and to be want to be pulled in more
Mhm.
into his word and into, you know, reading devotionals and in prayer time. And as I was growing up, my favorite verse, and you're going to get a kick out of this, but my favorite verse was pray without ceasing. And
Yeah.
looking back, I know that it was because it was three little words: pray
Mhm.
without ceasing. It
That's all
was
you had
easy
to
for me to
remember.
memorize.
Yeah,
And I,
yeah.
First Thessalonians 5:17, baby, I had that down. But as I became an adult and I understood what it really meant, that I could come to him at any time and that I
Mhm.
didn't have to hesitate. He was always just a phone call away, so to
Mhm.
speak, you
Mhm.
know? And the passion that it gave me for communicating with him was even so much deeper. And
Oh,
even
yeah.
now, like, I'm not perfect. Whoops, there went my chair. I'm
Uh,
not perfect in, some days my husband, he's so good to encourage me. He's like, if the only thing you have time for this morning before you run out the door because you got up late or you didn't manage your time well,
mhm.
read the Proverbs for the day.
Yeah.
And we have taught our children that over the years.
Oh,
And it's one of those things that it's as if the Lord changes the wording on that day for exactly what
exactly what you need to
you
hear.
need.
Yeah.
And I'm
I
like,
have
Did he
several,
change that?"
yeah, yeah, and why did you do that? Because I have a
Yeah.
stack, I call my morning stack, and it's whatever devotionals. I got 2 devotionals going, my Bible, my writing, my journaling, and it's so cool how all those scriptures will tie in, not knowing that I was gonna be reading that for today,
Yeah.
and they all tie in for what I need to hear on that day.
Hmm.
And I get excited for the next morning. Like,
Yeah.
"Oh gosh, what am I," but to memorize? No. And I'm a
Yeah.
preacher's kid, but I
Hmm.
can't quote scripture to you out of the yin, over and over. And
Yeah.
that's okay. People used to be so ashamed of that. And I'm
Hmm.
like, but you're reading it and it's going where it needs to in your heart and your mind, your soul.
Yeah.
You don't have to blurt it back out, but God will give you the words when you need to share something in that, I think.
Yeah.
It may not be perfect, may not be word for word of the scripture, but you can get the gist to someone needing to hear it in that
Yeah.
moment.
Exactly. Oh my
But my
gosh.
prayers always start out, "Hey, Jesus,"
Yeah.
because like, I'm back.
Yeah. Mhm. It's me again.
Yep, yep.
Wow. Well, Laura, one more question for you before I let you go today. So just thinking about 1 year later, who is Laura becoming?
Mm. Wow, girl. I tucked myself away when that question was asked at the beginning of the year, but she's becoming a very stable, sustained woman
Mm,
in her spiritual life, her entrepreneurial life, growing into that, claiming it, that what he's given me is meant to give back.
yeah.
And yeah, I'm excited for 2026 and where we're going with it and all the things. So stay tuned.
Yes, me too. Well, thank you so much for being my guest today. And you're going to get to edit this. So you're going to get to hear yourself
Oh
speak.
gosh, that may be harder than I think. I'll be like, ditto, take that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm good.
I know it's going to be awesome, and I can't wait for our listeners to hear. And so, if this story today, there's no really if, but if in your mind, if you're thinking, hey, this really touched me, or I have a friend who I know would just be so amazing to connect with Laura on this because they've lost, a spouse or they're going through a very difficult time, or you even need someone to edit your podcast.
Yeah.
Laura is your girl. So we're going to put her information in the show notes and you'll be able to reach out to her. So thank you so much, my sweet friend. I love you so much. Thank
Oh,
you for
I love
sharing
you, and
today.
I'll see you soon.
Okay, sounds awesome. Bye bye.
Bye.
That's it for today, friends. Thanks for tuning in with me today. I hope today's episode stirred your soul, sparked your faith, and reminded you that your story is far from over. Keep walking in freedom, keep showing up bold, and never forget God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Be sure to leave a review, subscribe, or share this podcast with a friend who needs to hear it as well. Until next time, keep letting her out to play because the world needs your fire.